Good guys, my name is Lord Tomy. We're going to get into another Sonic the Hedgehog toy item collector review. As you know, I'm Lord Tomy with the good old blister here. Not the good old blister, but the badnik. Dr. Robotnik. No, we're not going to be reviewing him. We're actually going to be reviewing his friendly nemesis, aka Sonic the Hedgehog. This one is actually the Sonic the Hedgehog Classic 7-inch plush. Now, they are created by the actual manufacturer by the name of Tomy, none other. Now, for those who've been checking out my plush reviews would know that Tomy have released and are currently releasing a lot of the classics and modern Sonic the Hedgehog plushes, as they are the current license holders, for now anyway, of the plushes and various other subsidiaries. Is that even a word? Probably not. But all their sub-properties being that if they're, figurines and all that fun stuff. So they have released a 7-inch version, and this one's the classic Sonic the Hedgehog. It is pretty unique in terms of how he looks and everything, so we're definitely going to go through all the, the ins and outs of that sort of stuff. So let's get into the actual review, bring him in as close as we can, and go through pretty much just the ins and outs of this plush. Pros, cons, what I like, what I dislike, and all the fun stuff with them. Straight out of the get-go, he does have the classic Sonic the Hedgehog look in that of the actual game. Now, for anybody who knows any of the original games, you always have his face, of course, and you have him doing that little finger movement on the actual side. This is more or less what it's trying to encapsulate. The only major difference is he's normally his feet will be like crossed over, going that sounded like a Mario tuning, but that's generally how it would look. But of course, they're keeping everything pretty much the same. The only difference is their legs aren't there. It's just going to be flimsy all over the place, in case you make him want to, make him run around as fast as we can. There is a small nitpicks to this actual pose, so we'll get to it, of course. But first, let's go through the top, all the way down to the bottom, and all that little fun stuff. At the very top of his head, you do have what I like to call as the hook. This hook is beautifully crafted to have him pretty much hang up like that. That's pretty much its core intention. As a collector's point of view, it's a nice little thing, especially if you have a lot of plushes, which I'm slowly amounting to, which I've still got a lot of plushes to go through, which I will get to eventually. So its design is just for space management, if you want to hang them on like a roof, or if you want to hang him on anything else that may not necessarily have cupboard or shelf space, which is awesome. The only downside to this is, of course, it is your typical flimsy little plastic thing, and as you can imagine, this is, I would imagine, designed more specifically for collectors than actual playing around with, based on its design and based on the fact that it's pretty much got a flimsy hook. So if you do get this dirty and you want to wash it, I can almost guarantee maybe the first, if not the later washes, this is going to rip off. If you don't care about this, you can rip it off. It is extremely easy to rip off, of course, just apply a little force. But if you don't want to, there's the option. Me, I have a little shelf which I will potentially put up, so I will show you, but when we get to that stage, we will get to that stage. Of course, you have his little cute little adorable ears. They're not internally stuffed, it's just literally material wrapped around. Now, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, it's literally two materials, of course, based on the coloration, but it's well stitched. So if you look closely, there you go, you will notice that the stitching doesn't actually come out from the outside, it's stitched inside, so you don't see the seam lines popping out, which I think is superb, unlike some of his other ones, which I will get to eventually. So his ears are extremely well done. My ones do slouch down, which I think is pretty awesome. So let's do that. Next thing you have his actual head formation. His head formation is pretty much encapsulates the correct form of Sonic the Hedgehog, as you would imagine. It's well stuffed, it's well thick. He's got his prominent spikes, which is at the back, which is pretty much 3 at the top, 3 in the middle, and of course you have, which I like to call his little wings, but of course the 2 spikes. I would have maybe preferred a third one. I don't know if that would look good, but you have 2 spikes, and of course you have his little Numi tail at the bottom. So that's pretty much his back, and you do have his butt. So it looks like Sonic is actually spanking his own butt, to say the least. So his head sculpt is superb. I really have no issues with this whatsoever. If you look closely, of course, you do have his face, which I think is pretty well done, actually. Now, I will zoom in to show you, but it's pretty much all stitched on, so it's not sticker based like, there we go. So you can tell that it's all stitch based, which I think is superb. Don't mind that little whiteness on that side, it's just a little verbal. So that's his eye. So it's phenomenally well stitched, which I think is focus, which I think is phenomenal. Absolutely love the fact that he does that. And of course you have his mouth, which is stitched in. As you can see there, it is stitched in perfectly fine. And of course you have his stubby little nose, which doesn't actually suffer from, focus, there we go, he doesn't actually suffer from what I like to call as the flimsy nose effect, where the nose will be to left, right, because you just can't get it. This one's a nice little stub, and it's got like this firm material thickness to it. So of course it's not going to move to the left, and it's not going to move to the right, which I think is phenomenal. Of course you get down to his little fat belly, phenomenally stuffed. The stitches are stitched inwards, not outwards, meaning you won't see the seam lines, which is superb. And of course you've seen his back, so I won't go into it. And you do have his little hashtag there on the side, which says Sonic the Hedgehog. If you want to check that out, there you go. And it is of course made by the manufacturer, none other than Tomy. And a little trivia for those who haven't seen my previous videos, Tomy once held the license for Sonic. Obviously it was moved on to another company, and then obviously they've taken over. Phenomenal fact for those who don't know. Before we get to his hands, I will touch upon his little hashtag, not hashtag, his little tag, to say, and you have it there, which pretty much, if you focus, there you go, you have Sonic the Hedgehog, and it says Tomy, ages 3+, and if you open it up, it just has obligatory information. From a collector's point of view, I do like the way it is placed. I would have preferred it to be on the back, simply because of how I'm going to display it, but the fact is it's not super intrusive, which is awesome. I do know why it is big, simply because it wants to attract kids and all that fun stuff, so parents can pick it up and have a look at it. Of course, if you don't care about tags and collectability, by all means rip it off. It does not detract from the actual plush itself. It is a phenomenal plush, and I cannot stress that out enough. Now, I do want to deal with the crux of the plush itself. Though its pose is hominous, and quite honestly, I dig it. You know, it tries to capitulate the whole introness of the I can't even put the words together, of the pose itself. Man, I've repeated that like 100 times. It does have a shortcoming. His fingers is homogeneous to the actual game itself. It is pretty much one material flipped over and with little stitching to extenuate his fingers. Great, superb. No issue there. It's exactly the same at the bottom, which as you can see from there as well, superb. The only thing is they're actually stitched to his head, and this one's stitched to his body. I understand the stitching on the one on the head, because if you didn't have this, his hand would literally just flip down and it would defeat the purpose of the image that it's striving for. I totally understand it. Makes perfect sense. I would understand to an extent the stitching at the bottom, but I feel like it's not needed for the stitching at the bottom. But I can imagine if they didn't stitch it, it would just flop out. So it looked like a very generic, wonky, everyday Sonic the Hedgehog plush that you see in the markets, flooded from time to time, from year to year. That in itself isn't bad, but I totally understand why they did what they did. Do I necessarily like it? No. Is it wrong to have it on this plushie? No. It's one of those love-hate relationships that I have with this plush. I love it. It does what it needs to do. I've just never been a fan. A big fan of myself. I've never been a fan of anything being stuck to his head or his hip like that. It doesn't take anything away from this plush. I need to stress that out. It's not a negative, it's not a positive. It's just purely a nitpick. So be aware of that. If you're one of those people that likes to mess around with the plushies and all that sort of stuff, as you can imagine or recall, it would look a bit weird, him putting his finger up. He's kind of like saying, hey, what's the matter? You know, we have an Italian Sonic the Hedgehog now. But you get what I'm saying. That's why I feel like this is more of a collector's piece than anything else. That being said, the Towers version of this kind of does the opposite effect. When I review that, I will talk about that, of course. So that's kind of a nitpick of mine. I've never been a fan of having things stitched to his head, may that be his arms or whatever, but it doesn't detract anything away from this plush whatsoever. On the actual side, you do have his legs, very chunk, very solid. I love that. And he does look like he kind of has an knee bend, which is all right, you know. And you have his socks, and you have his shoes. And you have one thing that I would have preferred that they didn't do, but they did. I'll just bring it in as close as possible just to show you. Focus. There we go. As you can see, the stitching is on the outside, not the inside. Now, I'm not entirely sure if it was a manufacturer's point of view or the design choice, whatever the case may be. I would imagine that having the stitches in the inside of the head opposed to the outside would be a little more pricier. Purely a nitpick. Once again, pardon me. Once again, it doesn't detract anything away from the authenticness of this plush itself. It's just pure nitpick. It's just what I am. It's just who I am. So you do have his buckle, you do have his strap, and it is perfect. Now this, I would imagine this plush is designed to be held like that with the actual little hook piece itself. Not bad, but me being the person that I am, I like my plushies sitting down and standing up, and this is where I would normally have an issue with, but I don't. Normally, I'll fall back to simply saying, where are the grooves of the shoes? You know, there's no grooves, therefore it looks stupid when you sit him down. Being that it's a classic Sonic the Hedgehog and not a modern, it works perfectly fine. Why? Because if you know anything about the classic Sonic the Hedgehog, he never had defined grooves. All his art, all his designs always had a red shoes with a red base. So this is 100% authentic to its original counterpart, being there from the 90s, which is phenomenal. This is, I would probably argue, I've got to double check, but I'll probably argue, this is the closest thing you'll get to an actual classic Sonic the Hedgehog plush line in a long run, in my personal opinion, simply because it's got the iconic pose and all that fun stuff. Overall, what do I say about this plush? Love it. I cannot stress out how much I love it. It's purely going to be on the front little, I'm building this kind of display thing at the top of my room, and it's going to be porched up there with the other plushies, other versions, smaller versions of plushies. But this plush as a whole is beautiful. How much did I get it for? 20 bucks. Is it worth it? I got 20 Australian dollars. I got this from our local EB game stores. You can get this from Amazon. You can get this from distribution sites. You can get this from Toys R Us in the US. But in Australia specifically, for my Australian viewers, check it out. This is can and will be bought in EB Games. Check out your local EB game stores. Highly recommend it. Support Australian merchandising, simply because if there's a market for Sonic stuff to be sold in Australia, they'll bring in more stuff, and I won't have to buy things from the US because it's expensive. And though I have the money and the passion, sometimes you just don't want to fork out that extra 20 bucks shipping for a $15 plushie sometimes. So yeah, is it worth it? Definitely. I highly recommend you pick it up. Rarity, 1 star out of 10. It's really common. You can pick it up anywhere. Is it one of my favorite plush lines? It's close. GE. I still love their stuff. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for checking out this review. Remember, leave a comment, like, and all the fun stuff. I am selling out by saying that, but if you want to, by all means, leave a comment. It's the passion. It's the love. Speed on. Take care. Till next time.